Hey, this is Gerd Handel, and welcome to the Inner Light Project. This show is for anyone who's wanting to lead a happier, healthier, and enlightened life. Create more self-love, inject more joy and abundance into their daily life. Join me for inspiring interviews and spiritual topics so you can shine your inner light. Hello and welcome to the Inner Light Project. My name is Gerd Handel, and today I'm just really excited to have this person on the show just because they're a male empath, and I've never had a male empath on the show. And this person helps empaths who have been emotionally abused to help to rediscover their authentic self. Raj Montage is an empath and trauma survivor, and he's recovered and helps people through his podcast called On Call Empaths and through his coaching services. He believes we all have the ability to heal. Hey Raj, how are you?
I am good. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, thank you. I'm just grateful to have you on my show now, because I know I was on yours a few weeks back and I just loved our conversation, and the whole thing we were talking about, like culture, and like we understood each other's backgrounds. It was just really powerful. So thank you for having me on yours.
Oh, it was an honor, and it is still doing well. So I just want to let you know you did make a big impact.
Oh, I'm grateful. Oh, bless you. Well, this time I just want you to just tell everyone about your journey, because you've been on a crazy journey, and I know you've come throughout like something so like amazing that has been hard for a long time, but you saw the light. And
Yeah,
I'd love for you to share like what your life was like until you discovered the term empath.
sure. And just before I start, I want to let you know, I haven't really opened up 100% until now. So
Wow.
I feel like now is the time to come forward and just, be open about everything. Because I get a lot of questions like, how did you become, an empath? When did you know you were empath? And how did you get into the work you do? My journey started when, as long as I can remember, as I was a child, from being in the school system, um, being in a community, feeling different, never really fitting in.
Mm.
And I just really didn't know, what was going on. I was just trying to people please and trying to get by and not get anyone upset or angry. So these things that I was learning, they carry with you through childhood into adulthood.
Mm.
So I didn't know that at the time. And so I kept repeating these patterns that weren't serving me. And it would start from, I remember once I was in a classroom where I couldn't tie my shoe. I remember this like it was yesterday, and it still affects me today, where the teacher had me walk across the whole asphalt with all the rocks and everything barefoot
Huh?
because I couldn't. Yeah, I mean something as small as that. Um, it shapes. It basically shaped my mind where, I was like punished or shamed, and so
Wow.
that's what shaped it. And so from that example, things just started to happen more and more often. And it started from the household. So not only in school, but when I would come home,
Mm.
it would be more of the same. Obviously, very well with growing up in the Indian community. They're very judgmental. They're very strict. Um, I feel like a lot of them, they just don't know any better because it's like they're always moving forward with their generational, what they were taught when they were kids.
Mm.
So going into high school and all of that, like most people would have parent, teacher day or father Sunday or mother, you would have your parents there. And I used to go to the sporting events and stuff where I would wrestle or I would play soccer and all these sports. But many times, I didn't have anyone. When
Mm.
parents' night happened, I'd be left on the field after everyone left. I remember one time I
Oh.
was just left there and it became dark. I was the only one on the field, and I was sitting on the bleachers just kind of thinking like, what is going on? Like, it was just a feeling of loneliness. Like I didn't
Mm.
fit in with people that was around me. I didn't fit in with the community. I didn't get along with, my parents. I was just going along. And that's where, the patterns were like ingrained in my head that I'm not good enough. And if I try hard enough, maybe they'll accept me. And
Mm.
I have to get everyone to like me. And
Yeah.
if anyone's listening out there, that type of stress, it goes
Mm.
into, especially when you get into relationships, marriage, things like that, because you have that mentality is if you don't please somebody, they're not going to accept you, and that's going to cause more suffering. Where that was the narrative. Now, fast forward to today, after all that trauma that I went through, um, I can walk into a room and then I can ask myself, do I want to accept these people? And it took me decades to get to that point, but it took a lot of hard work, a lot of good habits, getting rid of some people, going non-contact, being able to see different types of narcissists and manipulation and toxic people, not only in the workplace but also at home, and being able to shield myself. So I started looking into empaths because I met this one woman. I think I've told you this in my podcast. I think she was some sort of like, I mean, she was definitely an empath, but she was telling me that my story needs to come out, like, my voice needs to be on something. And I was laughing. I was like, I don't have confidence to even talk to someone on the phone. I don't know what you're talking. And she's like, no, no, trust me, your purpose here is to help people, and
Oh.
your voice is going to change the world. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do one episode and that's it, just to satisfy myself and you. And it was very hard because I did the episode and I'm like, man, I'm not happy with it. People are going to make fun of me. And I always thought what people are going to think. And then next thing I
Mm.
know, 100 episodes later, doing all these wonderful stuff for other people, that's when it hit me hard. I'm like, I'm an empath. I know what my purpose is. I know who I am. So I had to go through all that suffering
Mm.
to come out on the other side. And would I change anything? Not really, because then I wouldn't have met great people like yourselves and people all
Oh.
over the world that I'm able to impact and really connect with, because there's more people out there that are suffering in this world than
Mm.
ever before, not just because of the pandemic, but just in general. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Wow. There were so many things I was like nodding as you were saying them, and gosh, right. I'm gonna go back to the beginning a little bit. Wow.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, you're a brave soul, and honestly, it does take courage to come out and start speaking your truth, because from the environments that we grow up, especially being Indian, it's the opposite, right? We're supposed to put
Mhm.
on a front, people please, smile, everything is perfect, there's nothing wrong with us, right?
Mhm.
But when you start speaking your truth, gosh, it gives you that empowerment to really realize, you know what, I've been through some hard shit, and like, it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to speak my truth. And I think that's what you're doing right now. And I just wanted to say that before we carry on talking. um yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, like you're saying about when you were younger. I remember in school, like, gosh, I must have been about 5 years old, and I went to majority white school. So
Mhm.
obviously,
Same here.
yeah, with the odd like brown kids, right? Like just one every year,
Oh my gosh.
right?
That's like
And
torture right there.
exactly, because it's like identity, your family are like immigrant parents, so they, different
They would call me
culture.
Gandhi in
Gandhi,
this classroom.
what? Oh my
Hey
god.
Gandhi, get over here, man. I'm
Oh
serious.
my
Like
god.
they didn't even know my name. They
Wow.
just pictured an Indian man and they just called me that. And
That's
that's what my
ridiculous.
nickname was.
Wow. That's bad. That is really
I know.
bad.
It hurt, but what can I do?
Yeah. But I was just going to say, like, I remember a kid looking at me and saying to me, "Why are you dirty?" And I grew up, my parents
Mm,
never said anything about color at that point, because my parents taught us, like, see everybody as one. And so I remember going home, and I remember feeling really weird inside after that kid said that to me. And I went home and I said to my mum, "Why am I dirty?" And she says, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, this kid said that I'm dirty because of my skin." And then, like, she had a word with my teacher the next day, but I remember that affecting me a lot. Like, I didn't fit in, there was something wrong with me. And it kind of created an insecurity. And then other things like happened as I grew up, like again about my color of my skin, or like you're different, or you're exotic, or there's always these names that were given when you're in these kind of majority white schools, or the teacher couldn't say your name correctly and then would try to give you a nickname, and it's like, well, no, it's not that hard to say my name, like. And it's when you think about it, it's crazy, isn't it? It's these little things that affect.
It it happens even today, like just recently. People ask me for my last name, and my last name only is, pretty straightforward. It's
Yeah.
a couple letters, but they're just staring at me, and they just think it's like 26 letters or something like crazy. And I tell
What?
them, and so they're looking at me, they're expecting me to play that role, expecting
Hmm.
me to like maybe when I remember at work when I used to be in a gym position, a general manager. And so when I would talk to clients on the phone, when they would come visit me, they were, I'd go by RJ. And so they
Ah.
would come and see me and I'm like, I'm looking for RJ. I'm like, I'm RJ. And then they would kind of size me up and they're like, wait a minute, this guy's got no accent and he's
Mm,
definitely looks a little different. So I mean,
yeah,
they had a picture in their mind like RJ was somebody else,
was
because
white,
I have,
probably.
yeah, probably,
Yeah.
and so I could just tell like they weren't as interested. Like me, I don't know why, and maybe that's my insecurity, but
Mm,
today I can say it's not my problem
yeah.
if they're not happy because the way I look or how I come across, or because I mean I've even had in a job interview where they're like I used Roger instead of Raj, and
Oh, wow.
they said something smart, like they made a smart comment like, you're not fooling anyone or something along that lines, and I'm so glad I didn't take that job. But like what he was saying is like he would have never called me if my name was if I put my real Indian name on there.
Mm,
That's what I'm assuming. But the comment that he made it clear that he was looking for a particular type of person, and he just thought that I wasn't being genuine because I was using a different name other than
mm.
the one on my license, which is a lot longer.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I relate because like I was in the journalism world, and I used to get "you're well spoken for an Indian woman." I'd be like, "What does that even
Yeah,
mean?" Or
yeah,
you don't sound and look like other Indian people." I'm like, "What am I supposed to have an accent?" You know,
right, right,
and you'd think, "Oh God, we're in like the modern society, and you wouldn't be thinking like that." Maybe our parents' generation, I'd understand, but our
yeah,
generation, it just didn't make any sense to me. And wherever I went, people would get insecure because of the way I was speaking, and not like they would think I was like Brit, like as in white, not brown.
right.
And so they'd kind of get confused, like you said as well. And I'd be like, yeah. And they're like, oh, but you don't have an accent. Are you from India? And I'm like, no, I'm born in England. I'm
Oh,
Indian.
I've had someone I got in an argument with once. He's like, "Come on, man, don't be ashamed of your culture." I'm like, "What are you
What?
talking about? I've never been to India. I was born here. But you don't look like you're from this side of the pond." I'm like,
What?
"Okay, so our conversation is done," and I walk away. I mean, there's a lot of
Mm,
ignorant people, but then I
yeah.
mean, even now in 2021, there's a lot of people out there that are going to get in your face or make a smart comment.
Mm,
And being an empath, it's that
yeah.
much harder because we absorb all that.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, especially with a lot of my clients, I mean, especially the ones from different cultures, I've had Chinese, I've had Indian, I've had all types, and the number one thing they say is that people just they have this picture, being
Mm,
submissive and putting, being smart and doing your work and really being
yeah.
articulate, and so that's fine. Those are great traits, but I mean, I'm my own person. Like, I mean, when somebody asks me where I'm from, I'll tell them I'm from New York, and they'll look at me, they're like, "Okay, where's your parents from?" And I'll like, "Listen, I'm gonna just end this conversation because I don't like where it's going." And so what they're trying to do is maybe trying to relate with me, like we're the same, or we have something in common. But I take that as very offensive. Like, I
Mm,
don't know why, and it's maybe something that happened when I was a child where since the abusers that I lived with didn't like themselves, they would tell me that because of my skin tone, that when I grow up, no one's going to take me seriously. I'm going to be second class citizen. And this is coming from people that, are supposed to protect you and teach you things, but then all those things get ingrained in your brain. And then
Mm.
once you get older, you see the world a totally different lens. And the good thing is you can retrain the brain. And I'm living
Mm.
proof of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, like, anyone who's listening who might not understand what it's like as a person of color, I just want you guys, just for a moment, to just imagine like someone like myself or Raj or somebody who's a different background. We already have immigrant trauma. So, like, our parents, when they came here, they had their own trauma. They have their own
Yeah.
expectations of how they want to live their life and how they want their kids to live their lives. So when we're growing up, there's this high expectation on us. But then we also have this cultural side where we are supposed to fit in and
Hmm.
look presentable and behave in the right manner. And normally, I can only vouch for, like, obviously Indian side, but being an Indian girl was like, you had to people please and you had to
Yeah.
put on a front and you had to smile and say hello auntie, and
Hmm.
it was always smiley smiley, but your pain was always meant to be hidden. We don't
Yeah.
show society what we're going through, because
Yeah.
if anyone finds out, they're going to go and gossip and tell somebody,
Yeah.
and the whole community will know. It's crazy, but this is the kind of upbringing that we've had,
Cool.
people of color. And then when you're then also trying to fit into school, and if you've gone to a school that's diverse, then it's not so bad. But when you've gone to a school where you're like the odd person out, and it's majority white, you then are trying to fit in there. So then you're people pleasing again.
Hmm.
And then when you go home, you're trying to, appease your parents because you want to make them proud. So then again, you're people pleasing every direction. And even when you end up getting a job, you're doing the same thing, you do the same thing with your friends. It's tiring.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, it's tiring for people of color who are empaths, because they've spent their whole lives sacrificing themselves
Yeah.
in order to make everybody else happy
Yeah.
except for themselves. And what Raj has been talking about is growing up, how hard it was for him as well. Like, even as an Indian guy, like, it wasn't
Yeah.
easy, because we've had all these unrealistic expectations put on us from a young
Yeah.
age. And if you do something different, you have that pressure on top of you. And
Yeah.
it's just so heavy. And I'm just want to say to, like, anyone out there who is of a person of color, like, start the process. You have the ability to take your
Mhm.
power back, you do have the ability to heal, but the first step is accepting that there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you
Mhm.
are perfect, you are whole, you are complete. And then slowly start unraveling the patterns that you have. Gosh, I just went on a rant there, Raj.
No, I'm taking notes. Are you kidding me?
What would you say, like, just from what I was saying, like?
Well, first of all, I mean, I have to say, like, especially being a woman, I think it's a lot harder because um, I've seen it myself personally, like with how the men treat the women, you're like below them.
Mm,
And I think that is changing more and more,
mm,
especially in the States. But I know the older generation, it's like the man is always in control. Like whatever he says, um, you have to listen to, and they mold you into a certain person. So you can't have a favorite color. You have to like the color that your husband has or your boss has, or,
wow.
so and I've seen this, and even the people that are in my family, like I've seen their side of the family and how it works, the dynamics, and they're always one step below, and it's just widely accepted, but never talked about. Everything is
Mm,
secret, everything is hush hush. But when you ask those type of questions, like why can't she put her 2 cents in, then you get the
mm,
pushback, like, are you kidding me? Like, don't be asking that kind of question. So that's what I have a problem with, and that's why I like
mm.
having podcasts like this, so we can have open dialogues where we can actually expose what's really goes on behind closed doors. Because let's face it, even people in our culture, I mean, they are prejudiced against people of other color.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's being white is something that they aspire to be, but because they can't be that, I mean, just look at Bollywood, all the light skinned actors and all that stuff. Those are the people that get in. Those are the people that are on TV that are popular. Especially also like not only just the women, but also the men have to play this heroic role. So it's mimicked. And it seems like they're trying to mimic everything because all the shows are like mimic, like American Idol, all these things that you see on TV, like they spin it around on their end. So it's like they're constantly mimicking, trying to be accepted, trying to show their worth, whether it's through, hey, look at what I got, look at where my kids are going to school, look at what I'm driving. At the end of the day, those are the types of people I tell all my clients, those are not your people. And those are the people that are going to ruin you unless you go non-contact or you keep minimal like conversation, gray rock, and you leave one word answers. Like I cut most of those people out, and the ones that I have to deal with, it's more like a business relationship. I don't ask it anything personal. I keep it professional strictly. And if they do make a comment that's hurtful or they'll be like, man, you're getting a little bit too dark. Or also like fat shaming, that's a huge one too. I
Yeah.
used to be fat shamed all the time. I used to be like really overweight. I was like 200 some pounds, but because I kept getting picked on and told like, no, you're not a human being because you have a little fat on your stomach, or they'll grab the fat, or
What?
they'll feed you like all this like fatty food and they'll watch you eat it, but then the next day they'll be like, you're
Yeah.
you're not somebody very that is going to be desirable for dating or any of that. So then they'll put you down. So it's
Mm.
constantly love bombing and then constantly like taking it away. So when you do that to any human being, whether it's male, female, whoever, and they're still developing, and especially in a younger age, when that person gets older, I don't care how many therapists, psychologists, how many methods that you use, they're going to have that mark, just like a burned building. You can build that building back to brand new, but there's going to be parts that are going to not be 100% like clean. And but I say that embrace that. That's what makes you an empath. All your flaws, everything that people are saying that they don't like about you, embrace that, because you wouldn't be human if you didn't have a little fat, or if you didn't have a little darker skin, or if you're a female or a male. It all depends at the end of the day when you go to bed are the few people that you can count on and that matter to you. And that's what I tell my clients that live with narcissists, that have been in families that they get abused in daily for decades. For those people to start living in the moment and getting to that healing journey, they have to start one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, and just know that they are enough, even with all the flaws. And I know that's very hard. And I've been to many therapists and doctors and things like that. And I have to say 90% have no clue. Like they just don't understand uh, because they don't know the
Yeah.
dynamics. They're going from a different culture. So when
Yeah.
I tell them like I can't sit down at a dinner table, or I can't pull them aside and say, hey, look, let's have a meeting. It's your words are really hurting me
Mm.
when you fat shame me or tell me that I'm not going to be anybody because I got a lower grade, or whatever the put down is. You can't do that in our culture because now you're showing your dominance, and that's not going to happen. You're the person that you're being always inferior, you're one step lower. And I tell people like we're just like a grocery list. When you go to the grocery store, you pick up eggs, milk. That's what it's like for a lot of these families when they want to have kids. They have kids because it's an item that they heard of, their parents did it. It's like going to the grocery store, but then afterwards they discard you. Like it's not anything big, it's just like
Mm.
a list that they need to check off. And it's not your fault. That's all I can tell anyone that's listening. It's not your fault you were put into this mess, but it is your responsibility to you owe it to yourself to heal and live the best possible life you possibly can. And it's people like you, Gerds, that I really cherish because you're doing amazing work. And um,
Bless you.
And that's what kind of like attracted me, like all of the good stuff that you were doing online. It's like, man, somebody actually gets it finally. Like there's somebody out there that actually 100% gets it, you know. And so
Mm.
I appreciate you.
Oh, it kind of make me cry. Oh, bless you. Yeah, it's just, I think it's because there are like so there are like new therapists, like people of color who are coming out, and that is amazing, and I'm so grateful that's happening, because growing up I don't think there was any. I don't think I ever heard of an Indian therapist or a counselor or a coach, right?
They're
You
out there.
but they're out there now, right? But like growing up, I don't think
Oh no.
I don't remember hearing any of them. But I
No.
think what is important is doing the work and having people
Hmm.
that get you. And I think when you're a person of color, there's not many people that understand your upbringing or the immigrant trauma. It has to be somebody who's gone through
Hmm.
something similar that will get you. And I just wanted to just take it back a little bit. I know you were saying, for women it's hard and things. It depends on the household. So,
Yeah.
it's not just men that control the household. There are women who control households as well.
Sure.
There are many men who have grown up in households where the woman has been dominant and has controlled and the father's been quiet.
Hmm.
So there are so many different dynamics within cultures and upbringings of people. And, whatever background you've grown up in, the key is to look at those patterns, and the key is to look at those behaviors, and also to question why you're following them. Because I think sometimes we don't realize why we're doing certain things, because when we're growing up we think that's the norm, just like your
Hmm.
household, Raj, you were like, that's normal. My household, that was normal. But
Right.
was it normal? It's only
Yeah.
till you start peeling off the layers and looking, okay, what is it that
Hmm.
I want, and what upsets me, what hurts me. And it was important what you said. In a lot of cultures it is hard to talk to your family about what's upset you. And even if you do speak about it, gosh, there will be like World War III for a very long time, and it may take years. Just from advice, it could take years until the healing process happens. But
Right.
do what's right for you, but also be wary to protect yourself, because as an empath, it's a lot of energy and a lot of anger that will be thrown at you, and you just need to be aware of it.
Hmm.
Because when you're trying to heal yourself, but then you're trying to regulate other people's emotions, it's just too much.
Right.
And sometimes the key is just to take a step back and look at what you can do for yourself. What are the ways that you can nourish yourself? What are the ways that you can help to make yourself self feel better? This is just from experience that I'm talking from. It's taken me years to get where I am, and I know it's taken Raj years to get where he is as well. But your culture doesn't define you, and I think this is the key people need to remember. Your gender doesn't define you. Your religion doesn't define you. What defines you is who you want to be. And at the end of the day, the universe, higher power, I'm sure I've said this before to you, Raj, like, God made, high power, universe made you for who you are for a reason. So if somebody has an issue with that, that's their issue, because the divine wouldn't have created you that way.
Hmm.
If you didn't want, he or she up there wouldn't want you to be that way. So all these flaws, you were talking about, that's part of us. That's our perfection. That's how we were meant to be created. And we just need to embrace that and accept that about ourselves.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And one thing that I do get from from a lot of people that I've seen to justify their actions is they did the best that they could with what they had.
Hmm.
And that made me very, very angry for many years. And I was like, that's not my problem. Like what, it is not my problem. They decided to bring me here and have kids and then abuse me. Like, how is that my problem? And life
Hmm.
isn't fair. I mean, we all have, everyone has problems, everyone is suffering in some way, shape, or form. But you have to do with what best what you got. I mean, I know, like, I talk about they did this to me, or I felt like this. And I mean, there are some great things that you know in their eyes, maybe, like, they were trying to show, like, some sort of, maybe making like some food or something. Like, I know my mom used to always make food to cheer me up and stuff like that. I mean,
Oh,
and I think that's universal. So we have to look at the good, positive things
yeah.
also, even if it's coming from people that just don't know any better. I mean, you can't discipline a 2-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like they're going to cry. They don't know any better. Like they just don't. And by you trying to change somebody or teach them, what I've learned in all these years is I stopped trying to change anyone. Only thing I can change is my response and how I
Mm.
think. So they're going to do what they're going to do anyways. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I need to do. And if that pisses people off,
Mm.
so be it.
Yeah. And usually the people that are hurting you are actually just coming from a place of their own trauma. And,
Yeah.
they have their own trauma, but again, it's for them to heal. It's not your job to fix or save
Right.
them or please them, because in that process, you lose your identity and you lose who you are.
Sure.
So you can forgive them, you can, or you don't always have to forgive. I know forgiveness is spoken so much within the spiritual world. Yeah, I believe forgiveness is great. However, for some people it's not always easy. There's
Right.
abuse, there's domestic abuse, there's things that people go through, horrific things.
Yeah.
But you meet yourself at a place where you feel you can heal. It's not
Yeah.
always about forgiving that person, and usually the forgiveness is not about that person, it's about you setting yourself free from that person.
Right.
And it's usually for you, the forgiveness versus them. But the key is to start growing on yourself and start loving yourself, and all the things that those people have said horrible things about you, is to go back and look at yourself and look how amazing you are. Start loving you who for you are, doing things that you loved doing as a child, as an inner child. My
Mm.
God, there are so many things. Like, even I love skipping. So even when I was younger, I used to love skipping like 100,
Right.
200. And, when I went on my healing journey, I was like, right, I'm getting a skipping rope. And I used to start
Right.
skipping, and like my flatmates were like, what are you doing? But because it brought me joy, right? I used to go to
Right.
the parks, go at the swings, do things that are going to bring you joy again, to bring back that joyful side of you. Because
Yeah.
when you've gone through so much trauma, you need to remember your inner child, and you need to nurture that inner child as
Mhm.
well. That inner child is just craving love for itself. And
And that's a great point, because I talk that about that a lot with a lot of people is, you know, I actually talk out loud to the inner child sometimes, because
I love it.
that that little boy, or whoever's listening right now to this podcast, we all have that hurt child within us. And if you can take care of them and say everything will be fine, and you talk to them how you should have, how they should have talked to you as as a child, because you didn't get that. And that doesn't mean like you're going to be fine later on. You have to really step back and take time to treat that child as if it's your own. And so when I started doing that, it was a
Mm.
game changer, because I felt so much better. Like, okay, somebody cares. Because I'd always look for validation. And empaths tend to do that. They look to others, especially narcissists. They look to others to complete them,
Mm.
or they'll go to others for opinions, like, how does this look on me? Or do you think I should do this? Instead of like really looking in, does this make me complete? Does this make me happy? Does
Mm.
this complete my inner child? What does my inner child need? Am I nourishing everything that I need right now for that child? And the answer is no. Then you have to regroup and figure out what's going to satisfy that little boy or little girl that's inside, that's hurt. Because there is no timeline. It's a lifelong process. You can heal from it, but it's going to be a daily thing that you have to do to take care of it. Just like you talk to your best friend, you want to talk to your inner self the exact same way, like you're talking in a mirror. And I know it sounds crazy, because I know I was like, I'm not talking out loud. People think I'm crazy, or
Yeah.
I'm not. You're gonna look in my mirror and start telling I love myself. It just doesn't feel right. But I'm telling you, like, if you can't do that, just write it down. Just put in a journal, and then that in itself is so soothing and powerful. I've had so many people say like they feel so much lighter after they started to take care of that little inner child.
Mm. And like one of the things that I did in the beginning was I wrote a list of things that I always wanted to do. And that included
Mhm.
like the inner child, being free. And I wrote 12 things, so one thing for every month. And I kid you not, I did that for a year, and my gosh, I grew. Like it just filled myself up with so much love. And like you said, it wasn't easy in the beginning saying I love myself in the mirror. I remember crying like ridiculously, like like I love myself, like and sometimes I'm like I love myself, like now it's like I love myself, but that
Right.
takes time, guys, right? Like it's gonna take time, but
Right.
it gets easier the moment, it's like any pattern, right? The more you
Right.
do it, the easier it gets. And even if you find it difficult to love that in a child, the key is, remember, it's you either you mother or you father yourself the way you weren't mothered or fathered. That's
Mhm.
the best way I
I
help.
love that.
Yeah.
Yes, you nailed it right there. We never had that. So we have to give it to ourselves as adults, and it's the hardest thing to do, but it's the most rewarding
Yeah.
because
And
you're getting
also,
back your childhood.
yeah. And I was just gonna say also, like sometimes we put a pedestal of our family, like we put them on a
Hmm.
high pedestal. So like, and this is not just people of color, this is just people in general. We put our family like right at the top, we put them on this pedestal, and we have these
Right.
expectations, a parent should be like that, or we look at a friend's family or something, we're like, oh, that's how my parents should be. Or you go to a friend's birthday party and you're like, oh, that's how my parents should be. you know meet your parents at where are at. They're not
Hmm.
perfect, they've got their own shit going on, they've got their own trauma with their own family that are growing up. So I'm not saying that you need to forgive them, I'm not saying that you need to, like, you can forgive them, because I think forgiveness is key, but you
Hmm.
meet them where they're at, but don't have the expectations of what you want from them. So that's what I mean by
Yeah.
mothering or fathering yourself the way you didn't have that. You do that for yourself. And that is a big game changer. And I know with a lot of my clients that has made a difference, because yeah, especially immigrant children, right? Like, you want your mom and dad to like take you to the park or go do these amazing holidays, but they were too busy working in a factory or, working in an office, day in, day out.
Right.
There are so many of these expectations, right? But the key is to come back to you, because at the end of the day, only you can heal yourself, only you can nourish yourself,
Yeah.
only you can trust yourself. So why are you giving that power away to somebody else? That's
Exactly.
the key. Gosh, this conversation is getting very deep.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's not very often that I can just have a candid conversation like this, because unless somebody's been through it, it's
Yeah.
like people are just going to nod their heads. And I've met some great therapists and doctors, I'll be honest, but like no matter how much training or how many letters you have after your name, if you
Mm.
don't get it, you don't get it. It's something that cannot be taught in a textbook. It's experience. You have to go through it, and I feel you have that. And
Oh, bless you. And so do
yeah,
you. We both have, right? Because
yeah,
that's why we're able to help our clients and people out there, because we know what it's like to feel alone. We know what it's like
yeah.
to feel like, being a highly sensitive empath who didn't know how to stop all these emotions, of other people's
Right.
stuff. We were the listeners around everywhere we went, the community, friends, family, you name them,
Hmm.
everyone came to us. I still remember, like, I must have been about 8 years old when people started asking me for advice who were older than me. And I used to think, this is strange, you know.
Yeah.
But we've had life experience, and I think nothing can beat life experience. You can have all
Hmm.
these qualifications up on the wall, but it's what life experience you have
Yeah.
is what, and the
And
wisdom that you learn from that, that's
right.
it.
100%. And it's like I said, everyone has a different time frame. So don't put a limit on it. Don't say, oh, by this end of this year, I'm gonna be healed, or I'm gonna learn to forgive this person. If your true soul, your inner spirit knows if you're being honest with yourself. So just be honest. If you're not ready, you're not ready. And that's okay. There's nothing to be ashamed about it. In fact, I mean, I went for years and I was just like trying to convince myself, like, oh, I'm over it. I can move on. I can jump right into a relationship. I could, get into a job and have a career and everything will be fine. And I'll just move across the country and I'll start fresh. But one thing I will tell you, and I tell this to a lot of my clients, no matter where you go in the world, no matter what you've been through, it's going to follow you unless you do the work. You can start a brand new life in a brand new country and brand new people and be around positive people, but that core hurt wound that inner child work needs to be done. And doesn't matter if you're in paradise, you still got to do the work. And that I had to learn that the hard way because I kept moving to all these awesome places all over the world. And I would work there for a little bit. And as soon as I'd get there, the first couple months, it's like, wow, look at this view. I got an ocean and all the blue skies and all my coworkers are awesome. But then slowly after, it creeps up, it comes slowly. If somebody says something to you one day and boom, you're triggered and you're like trying to figure out what's happening. Why is this happening? And all of a sudden, since I didn't do the work, I was going into that dark hole again. And so I urge anyone that's listening is, it's good that you leave somebody that's abusive. That's number one. That's always going to be positive. But even when they're long gone, let's say if they die or pass away or they, divorce or whatever, and you don't see them, you still you still have to address those underlying issues. And whether you're working with a therapist or a coach or whomever, it's a constant everyday thing. Like if I don't do it every day and put myself first and do the work and what I'm supposed to, I'll start regressing backwards and start getting get triggered and start to snap and feeling I'm in a bad mood. And I'm like, what's going on here? I thought I healed. I think that's all like garbage now because obviously I didn't. Why am I going back to these same patterns again? And the fact of the matter is I have, but I still have to do the work. And that's a lifelong process for me. For someone else, it might be a little different on time frame. But for me, I know that every morning, like if I don't go for a walk, if I don't journal, if I don't meditate, if I don't, have good, solid conversations with quality people, I'm going to start regressing back. And so I have to plan the day before. Like I have to plan out like who I want in my life, what I'm going to do. And if I sense something that's not right as an empath, we're really good at that. If I sense like I'm going to get some resistance from a abuser, like a boss or a husband or wife or whoever, I have to mentally prepare myself for that. And it is so much easier to deal with life rather than just going off the cusp. Oh, I'll just deal with it when I meet them. And then it becomes a shouting match and then you start screaming and things get ugly. And so I try to at least prep myself the day before. And I mean, you can't be 100%, but you can at least know like if this happens, I know I can get up and walk out. And that's what I do. And sometimes if the person's reasonable, I'll try to have a hard conversation with them and tell them these are my boundaries and I'm not going to cross them. And I know you're my boss, or I know you're, my wife, or you're someone high up there that will get upset if I don't do it. But if I don't honor myself, I'm disrespecting myself and I'm done doing that. So that's how I have this dialogue in my head. And so now I'm just glad that I'm able to have this conversation in my head when I know that, there's a red flag. I know that where this person is going, or they're trying to they're trying to gaslight me or do something toxic, manipulative. I can tell, and that's when the switch goes off. I'm like, okay, I need to set boundaries, do the boundaries, you're people pleasing. So all this stuff is going in my head. So now I'm a lot better equipped with that. But go back 5 years ago, I would just be like, okay, sure, I'll do it. Okay, I don't want to get you upset. And I would just live my life. And what would happen? It would end up biting me in the ass and I would hate myself. And it got to a point where the pressure was too much. I had a breakdown because I was just taking on so many other people's BS. Like they wanted me to do it, but the person I put last was myself. So
that's why it's so important. Like, and I'm glad that you said all this because it doesn't matter what stage you're starting at, the healing is so important. Like I've been on my journey for 9 years, but even still now I have to do healing. Like it's not as heavy, but it's a little bit, sometimes somebody may test my boundaries still, but it's like, right, okay, I know what you're doing here.
Yeah.
But in the beginning it was like, like all this healing, but you start where you're at and it just gets easier. Every single day it gets easier. And life just gets easier as well because like you said, Raj, you start to see the patterns, you start to see people, what they're up to. You can you have to, like, you can prepare yourself when you're about to go out and you know there's going to be a toxic person there, or you know you're going to get some friction. You're like, okay, right, I'm ready, I'm grounded. It's
Right.
like, bring it on. But before, it would be like, woo, like a tornado. But yeah, it just start, wait, wherever you are, just start, and it
Yeah.
gets easier.
Side note, you're going to have bad days. You are going to fail. You are going to have days where like, what just happened? And let me tell you, that is okay. Because if you have more good days than bad, because I keep track. If I had an off day, I'll keep track of that. But as long as I see a progression where I'm actually having better days than bad, then it's all good. That means I'm at least on the right track. So if anyone's listening and you've had a couple setbacks, it's no big deal. There is no process where you're just going to keep going up and every day is going to be great. You're going to have really crappy days, and that's part of it. And what sets people apart from others is how you deal with it when you're at the dumps. Because not when you're at and you're high and you're happy and you're with people that you love, that's great. But it's when you're being abused and you're at the rock bottom and laying on the ground and you don't want to live, that's what's going to set you apart. Those thoughts that enters your mind at that moment, even if it's like just getting up and going for a walk, pushing yourself when you don't want to do something, making yourself uncomfortable just for a little bit, that's what's going to get you closer to recovery. Not I'm going to try to aim for being happy and being with people that are awesome all the time, because life isn't like that. You're going to be with people that are going to manipulate, and you're going to come across narcissists. But as long as you're equipped and you know that you're going to have good and bad days, you're halfway there. I mean, that's part of the battle.
I just wanted to ask you, we're coming towards the end of the show. I've just looked at the
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
Why do you think empaths find it difficult to ask for help?
That's a very good question. I would say, for at least for me personally, I can tell you it's because we don't want to upset or be inconvenience for others. Because when we were being abused and during our traumatic experiences, we would get reprimanded, or there would be something that we would have to pay, as far as either getting beaten or yelled at or shunned. So we learn very early that if we ask for something that we don't want to inconvenience them, they might think that we're a burden. And so as I grew up, when I would need something, I would just wouldn't ask, and it would build and build and build until I got to the point where I would blow like a volcano and I'd quit my job, or I'd just shut someone out of my life, instead of putting the boundaries and letting them know upfront, so it didn't have to get that bad. So I think it starts from a very young age, and then it progresses. If it's not checked, you'll get to a point where people are going to use you as a doormat, and then you're just hurting yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think I was just thinking with myself, like, I think when I look back, I think it's because we're so used to people pleasing that, we want to be the one that people come to versus asking for help.
Right. It's a survival also. It's like, I know, like, since I didn't have anyone to go to, like, if I didn't people please, then what happens if they disregard me? Then what? I'll be screwed. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do everything they say, and that way I'll be safe and I'll avoid conflict. And empaths hate conflict. We avoid it like the plague. Okay, I'll do it. No problems.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, and it's amazing though. Once you start asking for help, life does get a lot easier. And we deserve help. After helping so many people, we deserve to ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help as well.
No, there's not. And no matter what capacity it is, if somebody gives you a hard time when you're asking for help, they roll their eyes or they make a nasty comment, then right away that is a person that you don't need to ask help from again.
Yeah.
Do not disturb them ever again. And that's even happened with coworkers. I've asked
Yeah.
them, can you help me with this? And they're like, you should know this by now. Like, how long have you been here? I'll be like, okay,
Ouch.
I'll ask somebody else, and I won't even address them. Like,
Mm.
I'll just look at them and I'll go to someone else. And they'll feel like really bad, and they'll come, hey, I was just joking, what did you need help with? They'll realize it. But at that point, it's not about, trying to please somebody. It's about me. I have to put myself first. So anyone that's listening, that's the number one thing I hope you get away with this podcast is you have to put yourself first, number one,
Mm.
above everyone else. That's how things are going to change.
Yeah. And what about somebody who's, what are your 5 top tips for someone who's stuck in people pleasing and they don't know how to stop?
Yeah, that is a behavior that's kind of like automatic. And I've caught myself where I've done, even now, like with all the work, I just walk away. I'm like, wait a minute, what did I just do? I just caught myself. And that's a good thing. Maybe not in the heat of the moment. I didn't know what I was doing because it's so automatic, but you can train yourself to unlearn that people pleasing. You can start by taking baby steps, and maybe instead of saying no on someone's face, or just try something small. Maybe like if you're at a restaurant, and this is what I did, I would never I would never put back my food. I would feel too embarrassed to like you know send a wrong order back, or maybe I didn't get enough utensils for my food or whatever. I would let it go because I'm like, no, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to upset them. But now I'm doing things more in that, and more I do that, I'm able to stop the people pleasing, because guess what? I'm a customer and I'm paying for my food.
Yeah.
If you don't like your job, that's one thing. But if I'm not putting myself first and getting what I'm paying for, then we have a problem. Then I need to take it to the next notch. And so now, at this point in my life, I do it in a tactful but very um, like, I don't come across as aggressive. I try to put myself in that other person's shoes. So I might say something to the lines of like, I know you're having a busy day. You know what? I just remembered I forgot, some napkins in my bag. Do you mind? And usually if I go around that route, it works. But I was back to people pleasing. It's like doing small things like that, because it gives you a little spark. Like,
Mm.
just you get enough going, the flame's going to go. And that's how it is with people pleasing. You have to practice and practice. You don't want to start off by doing it on somebody who's very aggressive or someone that you're not comfortable with. You want to do it with strangers, or somebody that maybe role play with somebody, or like a friend. Start doing it to someone that that you can take like some backlash, but then start upping it. Start doing it in random places, restaurants, with people, and then start moving into the scary part of it, and have people hold you accountable. Like, just have a coach or somebody who can keep you accountable. Like, okay, how many times this week did you do this? Did you put yourself in this uncomfortable position? Because what happens is the brain starts to unlearn and see the connection that, okay, when this happens, I do this. But now when this happens, I'm going to stop it right there. And
Mm.
when you can distinguish that, that's when the magic happens. That's where, like, wait a minute, I don't feel bad. I just told that person no, and I feel great. When you
Yeah.
get to that point, that's when like, okay, you're onto something. But you have to keep doing it, not just once. You have to be consistent and put yourself in the fire many, many times. So practice does make perfect, and that's what I tell all my clients: is you have to be exposed. And I know I've talked to a lot of therapists on my podcast too. Is people with anxiety, and panic attacks, and PTSD. The
Mm.
only way that they kind of get over that is through exposure. So if, like, say somebody's afraid of like driving on the highway or going to a large room, they have to start off by like doing smaller tasks. Like maybe they'll go into a smaller place, or if they get a panic attack in an elevator, they might not go in an elevator, but they might go into something similar, like maybe go something maybe a lot larger. And then once they get that exposure,
Ah.
it's then you can you can say like, yeah, my brain has actually take that link off and it's not afraid. There's no danger. And so once our brain makes that connection, and that's with anything, not just people pleasing, but that's with anxiety, that's with anything that keeps you from being the best version of yourself.
You've given me two, just three more. But you've got three more tips for someone.
Three more?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is recharging every day, especially with empaths. And I stress this on every episode that if you don't take time to recharge your batteries, you're going to burn out. And with empaths, we need that. So if you work like a long, stressful day, or you're in a job that's super stressful, if you don't take time off in that day to do something for yourself, whether it's a bath, massage, go for a walk, meditation, journaling, if you don't take time for yourself, you're going to end up burning out, and then that's going to cause more problems. So recharge every day. It has to be a ritual like brushing your teeth. Number 4 is be surrounded by like-minded people. They say, studies show that we become the 5 people that we hang around with, and that includes family, friends. So if you're always around people that are putting you down, being negative, you're going to end up doing that. Because I noticed that. Do you notice when people are together, they gossip, and then they all gang up on somebody? Because all those 5 people, they have that energy, that negative low vibration. So you need to take yourself out and look at exactly who you're around. And that's why, like, I'm very careful who I get in my podcast. I chose you for a reason, because you have that energy, you have that mindset, and you've been through what I've been through. So that's a great example. Is I want to be, in these projects and be around you because of the things that you make me think and reflect and make me want to be the best version of myself. But like when I'm with negative friends who always talk and put people down and, oh, look at what she's wearing or look what he's wearing, that kind of stuff, that's going to cause more problems down the line, especially with empaths, because by nature, you know, it's really hard not to take that energy in. And so that's number 4. And then the final 5th one is letting go. And this is the most, I would say, challenging thing for my clients, because a lot of them have been through so much trauma in their life. Letting go isn't something that happens overnight. Letting go is where you can think of a time when you were abused and you don't get those physical feelings. You don't feel like your stomach is churning. You don't get headaches. You don't get muscle tension, or you're in the presence of somebody and you're having these reactions. When you let go and you stop resisting and you stop watching, playing the game, trying to be proper, trying to fit in, trying to wear the same clothes as somebody else, trying to keep up with the Joneses, or trying to chase something so you look good for other people to accept you. That's the biggest thing, and that's the hardest thing to do, because our society tells us that if we don't have things, we're nobody. And to me, I believe that it's not the things that make you, it's the experiences and the people. And that's what's going to be real, because when we're gone from this earth, there's going to be no traces of us. I mean, granted, you do a podcast, I do a podcast. I'm trying to leave this planet a better place than I found it, but I'm trying to make the best out of it. But when I'm gone, I want people to be like, yeah, that guy really cared about what he did, and he had a passion for helping people because he went through it. And so his life meant something, not somebody who was just trying to chase something that other people wanted. And I got it. Let's say, went to the best school and I got a big house and I got married and all that. What does it matter? Because at the end of the day, when it's all over and, when it's all said and done, are you really happy? And so letting go is stopping resisting and trying not to live in those expectations of your family, friends, or anybody. You're living on your code. And so if you can do that, you're one step closer to not just healing, but self-actualization. And, it may take a lifetime to do, but it's so satisfying because you know that your life counted for something and you weren't just like somebody here just walking around, holding a grudge for your abusers and angry at people and lashing out and trying to, resist and be accepted and buying all these things you don't need. So I tell all the people that I come across is try to put yourself first and let go. Try not to fit in with the sheep. Do what you have to do to make an impact on this life, because that's all you have. You have one life, and make it good because you can't redo it. So you might as well make the best out of it while you're here. And I'm sorry if anyone's listening who's been through trauma. I'm really sorry. It was not your fault, but you owe it to yourself and that inner child to live the best life that you're supposed to.
Ah, I love that. And my last question is, what are you most grateful for?
Well, gratitude is, I think it's one of the largest pillars in healing. I try to be grateful. At least I try to write it down. But I would say I'm most grateful for bringing the right people into my life, because I do really believe that there are people from all over the world that come into your life for a reason. And they may not stay long, but the impact that they make changes your entire trajectory on life. So I'm grateful for all the people that I've met on my podcast. I'm grateful for you, meeting you. And so that's what I'm grateful for is having the universe bring me good people that nudge me to be the best person in my life. Because honestly, I couldn't have done it without all of everyone. And like just even this conversation, I'm grateful for, because it's opened my mind, and it makes me feel good that there is somebody out there in the world that does get it, and I don't feel alone. And anyone that's listening out there, I hope you feel the same, because you guys are not alone. We're two people living proof that things can change.
Yeah. And, you can become an empowered empath. It's possible.
Absolutely.
It is possible. Yes. We are both, like you said, we're both living proof. And yeah, I just want to say, Raj, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story and just being you and male's perspective as an empath. Oh, that was so good, because there needs to be some more people like you and myself out there who are helping others, because I just love what you do. Thank you for everything.
I'm a big fan of you too. So don't stop what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Oh, bless you. What a great interview with Raj. And it just shows that why healing is so important, and why as an empath it's so important to trust the wisdom from within and to really get to know yourself, because at the end of the day, people pleasing hides the real you. It's time to shine your inner light. Take care, my sisters, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. For more information about the show or how to trust your inner light, visit my new coaching program at gerdshundel.com. And remember, stay happy, stay healthy, stay lit.